Assalamu Alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Your brother Tayyab Yunus here. I have someone very special on the show today. You're going to want to hear. Sister Magda Elkadi Saleh. She's not a one-time successful Islamic school founder, not a two-time, but a three-time successful. And I want to highlight successful because over the last 32 years of experience, she's done it three times. And many of us have been wondering, like, why would you do three Islamic schools within 10 minutes of each other? She answers that question. She also talks about what it takes to build an Islamic school if you're really thinking about it. And so if you are thinking about it, she gives the keys. She talks a lot about mindset, endurance, and what you need to actually make it all the way through. She gives other keys. She talks about board. She talks about donors. She talks about community. She talks about trust. This show today, super important for anybody who's dreaming about a better world where Muslim youth today are leaders for tomorrow. Okay, Sister Magda Elkadi, thank you for being on the show today.
You are quite welcome. Thank you for reaching out.
Yeah, wanted to really create an opportunity for others who might be thinking about starting an Islamic school or starting a nonprofit to hear from you, hear from others like you. Tell us, what inspired you? What was the first Islamic school story that you started with?
So I'm sure what inspired me was my experience in public schools, K to 12. Always good schools, but we always felt very different. We were always the only Muslim family in the school, and we were always navigating topics that we really didn't want to navigate. And we felt like we wished we had a chance to be in a community where people understood us and people were more like us, and we didn't have to always explain what we were doing and trying to avoid what everybody else was doing. And I made a really conscious decision when I had kids that by the time they were in third grade, they had to be in an Islamic school. And my husband decided we were not leaving Tampa. And so the only option was there's got to be a school in Tampa. And so we reached out to some people who've been trying to open a school for a few years. They had the finances and the corporate papers, but they didn't know what to do. And I had no money and no corporate papers, but I knew what to do. So we kind of got together and opened the first Islamic school here, which was Universal Academy in Tampa.
Wow. So you yourself went to public school, and what town was that in? Where did you grow up?
Oh gosh, we moved a lot, but basically Springfield, Missouri for elementary and Panama City for middle school and high school.
Okay, so these sort of small towns, Springfield, Missouri to Panama City, very small town. You're in public school there, you're growing up, and you sort of had this lived experience on your own that it sounds like informed you as a mom. And you're like, I don't want my kids to go through that. I want them to have a different experience. And then a roadblock comes. There's no access to an Islamic school. Your husband says, nope, we're staying in Tampa. And you connect with other sort of like-minded people. What was that like? How'd you find them? How'd these conversations happen?
So it started, I was actually approached by a teacher in the community who had started a homeschool in the masjid. And it was supposed to be elementary, and she was an English teacher, but figured she could handle math and science up to sixth grade. And people started pulling their kids out of public schools, and she ended up with kids in middle school and high school, and they reached out to me to teach the math and science because that's my educational background. And through those kids, I taught them one semester. I met their parents, and their parents had been trying to get a school together. And that was our starting point for the full-time school.
Yeah, so it sounds like, they have a similar dream or shared vision as you. You're the subject matter expert, the academic expert, and they're passionate parents who are ready to connect. And so now what happens? Did you have a job? Did you quit your job and just sort of do this jump?
I didn't have a job. I had 4 kids under age 7.
That sounds like a full-time job.
That was a job. I was in school doing my master's in public health. And I decided I'm pretty good at managing projects. I'm like, we're just going to get this started. We'll hire a principal and it will run on its own. It was a nice dream. It did not run on its own. We just put up a sign in front of the masjid. We had 75 kids by the end of the meeting. We opened 2 weeks later with 95 kids, K to 9. And we hired our first principal. It didn't work out so well. We hired our next principal. He had a stroke right before the first day of school, and the board members said, guess what, you're it. And that was my entry into Islamic schools. That was not my intention at all to work in a school, but SubhanAllah, these schools, once you start, they kind of grab onto you, and working with the kids it's really an awesome experience.
Well,
32 years later, I'm still here.
32. It sounds like you went from a few people saying, let's start a school, to a sign that ends up to almost 100 kids 2 weeks later. It sounds like 32 years ago, there's this market that existed. Like, what would you say to people today? Where do you see Islamic schools today? Like, because
I think the market is getting stronger every year. I don't think our schools can keep up. I tell them in Tampa, we could probably open 7 more schools and they would all be full. There's such a huge demand for Islamic education. We're not able to keep up with it by any stretch of the imagination.
So that was Universal Academy. Now, you just mentioned that you're somewhere else. How many Islamic schools have been on the journey here?
This is my
third Islamic school. So you're a 3-time founder of Islamic schools.
I was there till I had a 5th child, and when he was young, I decided I'm quitting. I stayed home for a year, and then I was recruited by American Youth Academy. I had a really good 11 years there. And then I decided with a group of other people in the community that we wanted a new kind of school. We wanted an equal balance between the Arabic, Quran, Islamic studies, and the academics. And our school now, Bayan Academy, we have half a day of each. And it's a very different model, but it's been working out really well.
So many questions, because I just finished my doctorate, and in my doctorate thesis, we coined this word called mission market fit. And when I hear you say 3 schools in Tampa, do you think that it became 3 schools because geographic distance, or because of just different audience, market, donor interest? Like, what happened there? What do you say to people who are always like, why do we have so many masjids? Why do you have so many Islamic schools? Talk to me. What are your thoughts there?
We're all within a 10-minute radius. It's not geographical for sure. It is different need. And I tell people it's really important to have schools that are a little bit different, because not all kids fit in the same mold. And it's important that we can offer different styles of education to different kids. We even have families who have 1 child in each of the schools. One of our schools is IB, one is very AP strong. And our school, it's really only for families who want that strong Arabic and Quran background. So it's not for everybody. And we try and work together. Some people come to him like, we're not the right school. There is a 4th school in Tampa, which I did not have anything to do with. It's Tayyab Academy. And theirs is very focused on quick memorization of the Quran. So we recommend schools to parents depending on what they're looking for their children. We're not competing. We just offer options, just like any other business. And the population is huge. There are thousands of people on the waiting list in Tampa.
I love that. I love that you're saying that, because it actually lines up with just classic traditional business principles. And that is, if the world all wanted one thing, there wouldn't be Walmart, there wouldn't be Target, there wouldn't be Amazon. You'd have one place to go shop. You'd have one grocery store. You'd have one restaurant. Here at the studio, we were just making a decision on lunch, and one of the studio staff members were like, "Hey, we've got this great Mexican food down the street," and I'm like, "But I just saw Chewy's as I walked in." He goes, "No, believe it or not, it's better." So why would there be Pizza Hut and Domino's next to each other? Well, it happens to be what you just said. You just said folks need to know that, families have different needs, kids have different needs. And the market's so huge right now, we need more institutions to fulfill those needs. There might be a parent, like you said, who they want an emphasis of Arabic for their child, or a parent, like you said, who wants an emphasis of Hifz for their child. I love that. And I would say, wow, there's a huge opportunity for anybody who wants to start a school again, because they think the current schools won't fit it. Let me ask you this question. As you've now done 3 schools, what's the greatest challenge? If you were to speak to somebody right now thinking of starting a school, what advice do you give them?
Oh my gosh, go in with your eyes open. Don't expect everything to be easy. It's a tough job. This is our battle, but it's very rewarding. A lot of planning goes into it. People think I'm just going to open a school. And I start asking them questions and they have no clue. I'm like, do you have a building? How's your financing? What kind of support do you have? It's not easy going into a school. When we started Universal Academy, the board members had, back then it seemed like a lot of money, $50,000. Right now it's like pocket change. But they said you have to have at least 27 kids signed up for us to give you this $50,000. And when they asked me, it was 4 weeks before school started. And I think we had like 17 kids. We weren't even close to the number.
Yeah.
Actually, I think they told me 30 and we had 20 something, but within 3 weeks we got to 95. We had the property. We had people, investing the time. We had a core of teachers. So there's a lot that goes into that pre-planning process. And I think people need to know there's a lot of resources now to reach out to. At the time we called ISNA. They said, sister, when you find out how to do it, let us know, because we don't have the answers right now. And now we have a lot of organizations that can actually help people who want to start a school and get them from point A to point B.
I was reading a stat recently that said that today there's now just under 400 Islamic schools, registered Islamic schools in the country. And it was also saying that the total capacity of these Islamic schools is 75,000 kids. Now, if you take that in account to what the total Muslim population is, Pew has always pegged us at 1.2%, and most Muslims don't agree with that number. But even if you said 2% of the population, that puts us, at nearly 7 to 8 million. So if we are 7 to 8 million, and CARE says we have 2 million voters, so that definitely puts us over the 1% mark that other organizations say. So if we have only 75 capacity for 75,000 students, then it says that the market and the demand is definitely there. Let me ask you a sort of a business model question. Because when I'm working with Islamic schools and have worked with quite a few, there's always this, tuition cost gap. When you think about, the fundraising, when you think about tuition, when you think about financial institutions, what's the right business model? What would you recommend people set up from the start?
So I think there has to not be a fear of charging tuition that's realistic. There's a big fear that if we charge too much, we're going to lose kids. So this year actually was our first year to raise tuition to actually cover our cost. But at the same time, we made a commitment to make sure we had enough money to give assistance to parents who couldn't cover that cost. And subhanAllah, we raised probably 3 times as much as we normally do for scholarships, because people were willing to pay it because they knew it's going for a good cause. And it's a very interesting dynamic that donors want to be charged what it actually costs. They don't want to feel like you're subsidizing their children's education.
Interesting.
So the people with money actually have no problem paying the extra amount. And at the same time, they're donating money to help cover the cost of families that cannot afford the cost.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is that, and I hear this all the time. I've got an Islamic school I'm advising right now in New York City, and their tuition is $600 a month or $6,000 for the year. I'm looking at this board saying, I don't know how you're running operations in New York City. I'm from Florida. We don't even have state tax. We don't have these other costs of living. Everything's different than New York City. And our Islamic schools are $10,000, $11,000 for the year. I don't know how you're doing at $6,000. Yeah. And the same fear when I hear you say, Brother Tayyab, they have to not be afraid to raise the price. And it just reminds me of that conversation that I have all the time with these boards, that they're worried if we raise the price, what will happen? People can't afford it. And it sounds like you've got a solution there. Your solution was, let's raise the price to fair market value, because you have people who really they don't want their kids' education to be subsidized. They want to feel that sort of, hey, I'm, sort of the rijal, right? Or the parents that are taking care of it. And on the other hand, the way you're addressing the people who might need the help is having the other instruments like financial assistance or scholarship programs. What are your thoughts on faculty and staff, and how do you build a team to build a school up strong? Like, talk to me about that, your experience and advice.
Oh, it's hard. It's hard to build a team. There's a real shortage of good teachers. Our public schools are having trouble filling hundreds of positions. And so we do have issues every year, and people leave. And as one of my staff members said, who's leaving, I've had a lot of changes in my life, but they're all good changes. So people get married, they have kids. We encourage them to spend time with their kids when they're moms. And so we do lose people, but then we bring in new people that are good. So there is turnover in our community, but good teachers are coming in. But I think one of the things, even we talked about the funding, what's really important is transparency and always making sure that you're including everybody in the conversation. So we have a town hall tomorrow evening.
Okay.
A lot of people are really upset with the tuition increases, but the board member said, you know what? We're all going to meet with you. Any questions you have are fair game. The board chairman sent out a long explanation of why we had to do the increase. He sent out a copy of the budget. So I think it's the transparency and communication, and people knowing that we're all here for the same goal. We're all here on this path of continuous self-improvement. We had an option. We had a big board retreat in January, and we had two decisions. Either you close the school because we can't cover the cost anymore, or we're going to bite the bullet. We're going to increase tuition, cut the budget, and get on the track where we need to be. And I think when people see it that way, nobody wants to see the school gone. Everybody, loves the school. They want their kids to be here till they graduate. And so all of a sudden we have this whole team of parents spearheading fundraising. They're doing all kinds of projects now. They've just, they're like, this is our school. We're going to make it work. It's not like these closed room decisions are being made and nobody knows why they're being made. So I think it's always good, even with staff, same thing. We had to have some staff cuts, and they were painful this year. It's hard to cut team members, but they know the reason, and they know it's not because of who they are. It's because we have to make sure our school is strong enough to keep going for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah, no, it sounds like one of the things that I'm picking up from that is, building a successful school and sustaining a successful school or nonprofit organization is being able to make the call on tough decisions. It sounds like, I'm imagining here we are, we got a school going and we need to get to the next level, and our revenue's not cutting it. We need to make some tough decisions. And it's sort of this go, no go moment. Like, I'm imagining a movie playing in your boardroom, by the way. And then I'm imagining, well, if we do this, people might be upset. How do we deal with it? And what I'm hearing you say is just be honest, be transparent. Truthfully, that's the essence of nonprofits. When the IRS said, we're going to allow for this nonprofit thing, they sort of created this governance framework that said it's for the public good and it needs to be purely available for the public. You could go register a for-profit and say you're a public corporation, and then the SEC shows up and says, make sure you're super transparent. Similarly, for a nonprofit, you have to be transparent. And it's almost as if they've done their homework and said, when you do that, people trust the organization. And you figure that out, that when you're completely honest and open and transparent, people get it. And I think it's crazy, like the story that you're sharing, I've never heard it before, that as soon as we were transparent, all of a sudden, all these parents are organizing fundraisers and hosting fundraisers in their home. And tomorrow you guys have an amazing town hall. I can't wait to hear about that town hall. I think that town hall is going to be super, super, super successful. What are some last sort of tips or advice you'd give, to folks that are out there right now? I'll be honest with you, Sister Magda, there's a group I'm talking to in Maryland. They have already raised $16 million.
Oh, wow.
And they've raised the $16 million and they haven't bought property or broken ground yet. So they sort of are doing a cash first mode. I've got another group. They're running a school out of a mushed basement right now. So we've got everything in between. People that are going, let's get the cash first, build a plan, bring the consultants. We've got people that are just bootstrapping out of a basement. What advice do you have for all these folks out there?
So I'm gonna tell you what I read on the back of a brochure 33 years ago from
I
Islam.
love it. Yeah.
And it said the only thing worse than not having an Islamic school is starting one and closing it down. So anybody who's looking to start a school needs to really make that commitment that this is for the long haul. We're not going to give up and close our doors. We're going to have to, once we decide to open, this is serious. We've made a commitment. Whoever opened, they really have to go in their eyes open. They have to believe in what they're doing. I've seen schools where maybe the board members aren't so committed. They don't really believe in their school. Well, if you don't believe in it, the community's not going to believe in it. You really have to believe in what you're doing. When we opened Universal Academy, my husband's a physician, and a lot of people said, you know what, you're sacrificing your kids to an Islamic school. And I said, you know what? I want my kids to be as successful as possible. I have to make sure this school is good enough to make them successful as possible. And so I had a vested interest in the school. I wanted to make sure that my kids were getting the best education possible, and every other child in that school was getting the best education possible. It's not something where I don't trust it with my own children. It's got to be good enough to where my own kids can go there. And it's just a commitment, and it's a mission. It's not a job. It's not something that you just do as a business to make profit. We definitely do not make profit. We're not here to make money. We're here to really develop successful human beings that we can look at when we're retired and be proud of who they are and know that they're going to take care of us. It's I don't know. I love the job I do. People come in and say, oh my gosh, you're still doing it after all these years, but the payoff is just amazing. And you have to have a passion for it. You can't just do it for the job. That's basic. That's really what it is.
It reminds me of something Steve Jobs said. He said, to do anything of any importance or greatness, you have to be insane to do it, because sane people wouldn't do it. And, you know, what I'm hearing you say is, you know, when we're old, we want to see our kids, you know, be amazing citizens of the world, making the world a better place, you know, and in today's days, for a lot of us, that's hard to believe that's possible anymore. But then there's people like you out there and that are really saying, nope, we're going to go build something different. We're going to do something different. And what Magda said is you got to believe in it if you're going to do it, because like Steve Jobs said, you know, you have to believe in it so much to endure the ups, the downs, and the continuous failures before you finally get to the amazing successes that are there. Sister Magda, Jazakumullah khairan. I'm so grateful and humbled for you to be on my show and sharing your advice and sharing your guidance. We might want to get you back out. I want to learn more about your experience with boards. I want to learn more about your experience with how do you fund an Islamic school. We'd love to get you back out and share that advice so that all those folks out there who are building schools today, we're at 400, maybe 10 years from now, there's 1,000 Islamic schools. They can benefit from your work right here in Tampa. I'm a Floridian, so I'm very biased. Thank you for making Florida a better place. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. Yes. Assalamu Alaikum wa rahmatullah.